This is another basic thing that you have to know is the concepts of an angle. An angle, I want to be sure that you understand what is an angle. If you rotate this, this line over this line, you make a rotation, and the measure of the rotation is the angle. So to rotate this angle from here to here, the measure of the rotation is the angle. So what is the definition of an angle? An angle, a delta theta angle, an increment in the angle is the length L, here, this length, divided by the radius of the rotation. The radius of the rotation. So this is the definition of angle, and this angle is measured in radians. So radians is a unit. Well, this is length is meter, radius is meter, so the angle, it doesn't have any units, but we call it radians to know that it corresponds to a rotation. Also, we measure the angles in degree, and the correspondence is that 2 pi radians correspond to 360 degrees. And what is 2 pi radians? Is the rotation of the line, of this line, the rotation to itself. We rotate the angle one turn, and we end in the same point. This rotation is 2 pi, okay? And 2 pi corresponds to 360 degrees. 2 pi radians doesn't have, the radian is not the unit, is meaning that you are rotating. So this is the definition of angle, and of course, if this is the definition of the angle, the length sustained in this angle is delta theta by r. So this is what is important. This angle here is the same one if you rotate from here to here, or if you rotate the line from here to here, or if you rotate the angle from here to here, it's the same angle. So the angle is the length sustained in the rotation divided by the radius r1. But r1 is this distance. But because it's the same angle, it should be equal to L2 divided by R2, this radius. And because it's the same angle, it should be equal to L3 divided by R3. So this is something that you have to stop and think about it, because it's very important to realize that if you make, for example, the angle to be 2 pi, if you make the angle to be 2 pi, meaning that this is going to do one round, the length will be 2 pi r, and the radius will be r. So 2 pi is equal to pi. So we check it. We check it that this definition is a consistency with the fact that L, the length of a circle, of radius r, the length is 2 pi r. Okay? So I want you to learn this. The length is equal to the radius by delta t. The length is equal to the radius by the angle sustained. But this angle must be measured in radians. Okay, the other thing that I want you, that you should know, of course, cosine, and so on. The sine, so imagine that you have this triangle here, this triangle, okay, and you want to define the sine of theta. The sine of theta, well, in this picture, of course, L1 is equal, the length is equal, this length is equal to the radius, this radius, R1, to the angle, theta 1. So theta 1 is in radians. If theta is equal to 2 pi, because you have done one round completely. So we want the definition of sine of theta, cosine of theta, and tangent of theta. The sine of theta is A, what is opposed to the angle, the length opposed to the angle in the triangle, divided by R1. So A is R1 by sine of theta 1, of course. The cosine of theta is B divided by R1. Okay, B divided by R1. So B is R1 by cosine of theta. And then tangent of theta 1 is sine of theta 1 divided by cosine of theta 1. And sine of theta 1 divided by cosine of theta 1 is this divided by this, which is A divided by B. So from this equation, you have that A is B tangent of theta 1. So this is what you have to know, because we will use a lot of in solving problems, and if you are not in the correct, if you don't have the correct idea, it will be difficult. So I repeat again, the sine of theta is the opposite length divided by the hypotenuse, the radius R1. The cosine is this angle, this length, the adjacent, divided by R1. The tangent of this angle is A divided by B. So sine is opposite divided by hypotenuse. Cosine is this divided by the hypotenuse. Tangent of this angle is A divided by B. You have to know that the Pythagoras theorem says that r squared, the hypotenuse squared, is equal a squared plus b squared. If you do a little bit of mathematics, you will find that for every angle, the trigonometric equation will say sine squared of theta plus cosine squared of theta equal 1. So this equation and this equation are the same one. So I insist, think this equation also, A equal R1 sine of theta 1. See this equation again. B is R1 cosine of theta 1. And see this equation. And if you understand everything, you can do one problem. Okay, this is the problem that I want you to think about it. Suppose that you have a triangle like this one, this triangle, and this triangle have the size, the length A here and B here. And the same triangle ups, this triangle have the same length A and the same length B that the other triangle down. So the angle here is theta 1 and the angle here is theta 2. Maybe theta 1 is 30 degrees and theta 2 should be 60, because 60 plus 30 is 90 degrees. So the condition is that theta 1 plus theta 2 is pi over 2. So I want to find sine of theta 1. Very easy. Sine of theta 1 is the opposite, the length that is opposite to the angle, A divided by R. Sine of theta 2, very easy. Cosine of theta 1 and cosine of theta. Sorry, sine of theta 1. Here is sine of theta 1 and cosine of theta 2. So let's go to put here sine of theta 1 and cosine of theta 2. So I want you to compare this quantity that you will find and to tell me if it's true the following thing. 1. Is sine of theta 1 equal to cosine of theta 2? Is sine of theta 2 equal to cosine of theta 1? Is the sine of theta 1 equal to the cosine of theta 2? Well, sine of theta 1 is this divided by this. And cosine of theta 2 is this quantity divided by this quantity. Oh, it looked the same thing. So check this quantity, check this quantity, check this quantity, check this one, check this equation. This equation is this equation, because you can see this equation. So figure out to think about all this thing that is here, because we will use this idea many, many times during the course. So you have to be sure that you visualize what we are going to use. Good luck. Okay, these are from your book, from your textbook. This is the triangle. Well, this triangle is not a rectangle triangle. The triangles are alpha, beta, gamma. The three sides of the triangle is B, A, B, and C. And you should know the law of sines. The law of sines say that sine of alpha divided by A is equal to sine of beta divided by the opposite side equal to sine of gamma divided by C. This is the law of sine that you have already studied, and this is the law of cosine. The law of cosine says that if the triangle is not rectangle, the quantity c squared, the hypotenuse, is equal a squared plus b squared minus 2 times ab by the cosine of the angle. These two trigonometric relations you may use sometime to make some problems, and there are a list of useful trigonometry identity when what I have explained before, you can deduct any of these identities. You can try to deduct any of these identity to see how it works. And this is something that we will use. If theta is very, very small, sine of theta is equivalent to theta, to the angle, but in radians. In radians, sine of theta is equivalent to theta if theta is measured in radians. And for theta very, very small also, cosine of theta is equivalent to 1 minus theta squared over